Now that we have understood the different aspects of IP, which is intellectual property, I think it is also going to be interesting to understand the various aspects that other stakeholders, like investors, would be interested in when it comes to IP. So it would be critical for us to take a look at the investor's viewpoint when it comes to intellectual property rights.
Why we need to look at intellectual property rights from an investor's perspective? So on the face of it, this may seem peculiar from a founder's perspective that you're looking at starting up a company and you're already thinking of an investor, but it's not so much as investor but more on the long-term growth of your company. So the first step would always be, because you're anyway going to incorporate a company to start your business, it is always good to apply for IP protection in the name of the company. So intellectual property is a very important clause, and even when you're entering into arrangements, even if it's not sponsorship, any third-party agreement that you have, it is important to ensure that there is no deemed assignment of intellectual property and that your brand name is yours, and it's not, whether it's a JV or whether you're entering into any other arrangement, but there is no deemed permission or consent for either party to use the third party's intellectual property rights. The other important aspect from an investor perspective is how well your IP is protected. Once you've applied, then there is also a review process on the levels of protection and also the classes in which you apply. So, for example, in the case of trademark, there are different entries recognized. Another important aspect to bear in mind is that once you've registered, or rather once you've applied for registration, it's not just a question of sitting back and allowing time to lapse for the registration process to come through. It also requires periodic review depending upon the nature of your business. So initially, if your business comprised of only XYZ services, you may have applied for registration of trademark in a particular class, let's say for providing certain goods. But as your business grows and using that brand across different services, it is important to keep applying for those trademarks in those relevant sectors recognized under law. The other aspect is that your brand may go through some changes, your logo may go through some changes, so it's important to always at the back of your mind factor the legal consequences of changing it. Not only is it a commercial call that you're taking on how people are already identifying with your brand and what are the implications of changing it at a later stage, but also what are the legal registrations that you've obtained based on a particular name or logo. Intellectual property is one of the core aspects of the business which they're investing into, so it will always give comfort to know that this is something that has been factored in and has been adequately registered. So these are aspects that you will need third-party help to always have and monitor the growth of your business and whether all the registrations you've applied for are adequate or not.